Hey, what's going on YouTube? Welcome to another Preseason 8 League of Legends Champion Guide. Today I'll be covering Jungle Lee Sin, the Blind Monk.
Your will, my hands.
Alright, so now let's start off this guide as per usual with Lee Sin's pros and his cons. So off the top, Lee Sin's a champion with some very strong ganks and a really strong early game. That means to play Lee Sin effectively, you need to be influencing the game rather early on and start ganking lanes. Now he's also a champion with some very high burst damage and a lot of mobility. You can use your W ability to jump onto minions, wards, or your allies, and your Q ability can even be used to jump to enemy minions, or you can use it to jump to jungle camps or something like Dragon. Now Lee Sin's also a playmaking champion, so if you play him properly, you can make all sorts of plays for your team and really influence the game. Then finally, Lee Sin also has multiple reveals, so he's a pretty solid pick against something that likes to sit in stealth like a Kali. Now for your cons, however, Lee Sin scales very poorly. You're going to be very effective in that early in the mid game, but in the late game, not so much. Your combos are actually pretty hard to pull off as well, so Lee Sin is pretty hard to master. Quickly ward hop and kicking somebody back in your team is not going to be the easiest thing to pull off when you're learning Lee Sin, but when mastered, you can be very effective. And finally, Lee Sin is pretty skill shot reliant. Yeah, sure, only his Q ability is technically a skill shot, however, it must be landed for you to engage. If you're not landing it, you're not going to be getting onto that enemy champion. For your runes, you want to go for Domination and Precision, grabbing Electrocute as your keystone. Since Lee Sin's already a bursty champion, this will add just a little bit more damage into your burst combos and give you some really nice damage. You then want to go for Sudden Impact because you will get the lethality every time you ward hop or use your Q ability to jump, and it can give you some really nice damage as well. Then get Eyeball Collection for some more AD whenever you get a takedown, and then go for Relentless Hunter so you get permanent out of combat movement speed to roam around and gank just a little bit quicker. Then in the precision side, get the normal combo of Triumph and Coup de Grace. This will restore some health whenever you get a takedown and give additional gold, and it will make you deal more damage to low health enemies as well. For your first summoner spell, you want to grab Flash. You can pull off all sorts of plays with it and get your team all sorts of kills. One popular combo is using your Flash to jump behind a target and then using your Dragon's Rage to kick the target into your team for them to delete. You can also flash forward and use your Resonating Strike to jump onto the enemy from a very long distance. Now for your next summoner spell, you'll need to grab Smite. This is required so you'll be able to clear through the jungle, secure objectives like Dragon and Baron, and buy your jungler item. A Tracker's Knife will allow you to pull off your ward hop combo throughout the game, which is very important to have on Lee Sin. Your passive ability is Flurry, which gives you some nice bonus attack speed and energy return between your abilities. After using an ability, Lee Sin's next two basic attacks within 3 seconds gain 40% bonus attack speed, returning 20 energy on the first attack and 10 energy on the second. So this is a pretty damn strong passive because both your Q, W, and E have 2 activations, and this works with each of those. As long as you're somewhat spreading out your abilities, you'll permanently pretty much have 40% bonus attack speed. This is going to be great for clearing through the jungle, and it's also going to give you some nice added damage whenever you are dueling an enemy. When you are constantly spamming all of your abilities, they do cost a lot of energy as well, so you want to be auto-attacking in between just for that energy return as well. Keep in mind, however, it's not worth always auto-attacking. However, if you are going for a ward hop kick combo, you're not really going to stop to auto in between that kick. Your Q abilities are Sonic Wave and Resonating Strike, which is your primary engaging combo that also does some significant damage. On first cast, Lee Sin fires a Sonic Blast in the target direction, dealing physical damage to the first enemy it hits and granting true sight of them for 3 seconds. If Sonic Wave hits, Lee Sin can cast Resonating Strike within the next 3 seconds. So on that second cast, Lee Sin dashes to the enemy marked by Sonic Wave, dealing physical damage capped against non-champions. So this here is easily your best ability because it hits for a 90% bonus AD ratio twice, and the second one also has targets missing health damage on top of it. This makes it great for executing the enemy. This is also going to be your primary way of engaging onto the enemy champion because you are a melee champion, but this has a 1100 range, and as long as you can land the first Q, you can jump to that enemy. Keep in mind, if you are trying to run away from an enemy, you can always use this to jump to an enemy minion or a jungle camp as well. Your W ability is Safeguard and Iron Will, which allows you to ward hop, gives you a nice shield, and also gives you bonus lifesteal. On first cast, Lee Sin dashes to the target ally or friendly ward. If the ally is a champion, both they and Lee Sin are shielded for 2 seconds, and Safeguard's cooldown is reduced by 50%. Lee Sin can self-cast Safeguard to shield himself. If Safeguard is used, Lee Sin can cast Iron Will within 3 seconds. So on that second cast, for 4 seconds, Lee Sin gains bonus lifesteal and bonus spell vamp. So this here is another really important part of Lee Sin's kit because it is what allows you to ward hop. If used properly, this of course will allow you to jump behind the enemy champion and kick them into your team. It's also really nice because you can use it to jump over walls with a ward, and that second activation gives you some really nice lifesteal. It'll give you some nice sustain when you're clearing through the jungle and make you just a little bit more durable in team fights. Try to use it on allies whenever you can because they will also be granted the shield, and of course the cooldown will be 50%. Your E ability is Tempest and Cripple, which does some nice AoE damage and reveals the area, and also allows you to slow the enemy. On first cast, Lee Sin smashes the ground, dealing magic damage to nearby enemies and granting sight of them for 4 seconds. If Tempest hits an enemy, Lee Sin can cast Cripple within the next 3 seconds. So on that second cast, Lee Sin slows all enemies in range and marked by Tempest for 4 seconds, decaying over the duration. So this is a fairly strong ability because it has a 100 AD ratio and of course works in an AoE range. That makes it great for clearing through the jungle and gives you some solid AoE damage in teamfights. Now this ability is really strong against champions that like to sit in stealth like an Akali or a Teemo because you will be able to reveal the area. So when something like an Akali is sitting in her stealth, make sure you use this ability on top of her circle to reveal her so the rest of your team can follow up and kill her. The slow is also really strong as well because it will allow you to stick onto those enemy champions. Your ultimate is Dragon's Rage, which does a lot of damage and also knocks up the target and kicks them away from you. When activated, Lee Sin Roundhouse kicks the target enemy champion, instantly rooting them for 0.25 seconds, dealing physical damage and knocking them back 1200 units over 1 second. Enemies hit by the enemy turn projectile receive bonus physical damage and are knocked up for 1 second. So this here is a very strong ability because it has a 200% bonus AD ratio, which is pretty nuts. Of course, when you combine this with your Q ability, Lee Sin has a pretty ridiculous amount of burst damage, especially at level 6. Now this ability, however, is even better for the fact that you can kick people into your team. You can either ward hop or flash behind the enemy champion and then kick them into your team and you'll get a pretty damn free kill. This huge chunk of damage is also part of the reason Lee Sin is a really good duelist. For your skill order, you first want to put a point into your ultimate whenever you can at 6, 11, and 16. Then, since it is your main source of damage, you want to max your Q ability first. The cooldown also goes down a second every time you put a point in the ability, so it's very important to get points into. Then next, you can max either your W or your E ability second. Personally, I'll max my W ability second because you do get a stronger shield and a scaling sustain ratio, so it's really nice to get points into. If you are against a very mobile team, however, then you do have the option of maxing your E ability second because it does have that scaling slow duration. Both are very viable to max second, and it's completely up to you. For your main combo, you first want to start by ward hopping behind your enemy. Then use your ultimate to kick them back towards your team and follow up by landing your Q ability while they're flying through midair and use the second activation of your Q to jump to the target. Of course, in real time you want to pull off this combo much quicker, and keep in mind you can always use your flash as well instead of your ward hop, it's easier to pull off. Lee Sin is a very strong jungler in the early game, so usually I like to rush level 3 and then start ganking. I like to start at either blue or red buff with a leash for my bot lane and then do wolves and then the other buff. This will give you level 3 rather quickly and allow you to have points in all of your abilities, giving you some really strong ganks. Now just like in this gameplay, you do also have the option of invading the enemy jungler. You can either invade them at their first buff, or you can start by taking your first buff and then meet the enemy jungler at their second buff so you can smite it away from them and then kill them. When ganking before level 6, you want to first try and land your Sonic Wave on the enemy and then jump to them with your Resonating Strike. If possible, however, try to run up to the enemy or jump towards them with your Safeguard so you can slow them with your Cripple to make landing your Sonic Wave much easier. Now your ganking, however, gets even better when you are level 6. You can either ward hop or use your flash to jump behind a target and then use your Dragon's Rage to kick them into your team for them to delete. Make sure that you land your Sonic Wave on the target when they're flying through the air because of course they can't move and it's much easier to land. Lee Sin is a rather weak team fighter, but if you can manage to kick a high kill priority target into your team with your Dragon's Rage, then you can really affect the team fight in a positive way. Try to combine a ward hop and a flash to jump behind the target and then kick them into your team. As long as you can land your Sonic Wave on the target, you can use the second part, Resonating Strike, to jump onto the enemy, which will get you out of the team and to safety. If this isn't a possibility, however, then usually I like to stay on the front line and help peel for my carries with my Cripple and of course my Dragon's Rage. Alright, now let's look at some of your hard matchups, and first up is Rammus. Now Rammus is one of the best junglers at the moment, and he will completely destroy you. All he has to do is activate his W so you deal no damage and start killing yourself. He also has pretty damn strong counter ganks, so you have to try to make sure he's nowhere near you when you're going in for ganks, because if a Rammus rolls in, you're going to get destroyed. Try to keep vision of him and don't 1v1 him whenever he has a Thornmail. Next up would be Udyr. Now although Lee Sin is a pretty decent duelist, Udyr is even stronger. If you're both even in items and Udyr meets you in the jungle in a 1v1, you're gonna have pretty much no chance of beating him. You do have superior mobility however, so try to avoid him as much as you can and gank lanes when he's not near you. You do have the option of counter ganking an Udyr, so try to keep track of where he is. Next here you have Warwick, who's another champion that's really strong at 1v1ing you because of his ridiculous sustain. He's also got pretty decent mobility as long as people are low near him and really solid counter ganks. That means it's very important to try to keep track of where he is and don't gank when he is nearby. Warwick is also one of those junglers that can easily solo the dragon early on, so try to keep it warded and make sure he's not soloing it because his team will get stronger. And for the last hard matchup, I've got Xin Zhao. He is a champion yet again that if you meet in the jungle in a 1v1 is going to destroy you. He's got an absolute ton of damage and he's got some great sustain as well. He's also a fantastic ganker, counter ganker, and team fighter, so you have to try to avoid him as much as possible. Use some deep wards to keep track of where he is, and then gank lanes when he's nowhere near you. Alright, with all that covered, let's finish us off with the item build, which starts with a Hunter's Machete, refillable potion, and a warding totem. For your core build, we have the Tracker's Knife enchanted with Warrior, a Black Cleaver, and a Deadman's Plate. This is going to give you a pretty decent amount of damage, and of course you're going to be able to ward hop because of that Tracker's Knife, and you're going to also have the Armor Shred from the Black Cleaver, and some decent tankiness from the Deadman's Plate. This will also give you a little bit of extra mobility, making your ganks even more effective. If you were snowballing, however, you could save the Deadman's Plate for later and get some extra damage, but usually I like to play more of a bruiser heavy Lee Sin. For your boot options, you have Boots of Mobility for quicker ganks and roams, Ninja Tabbies against high AD teams, and Merc Treads against high AP and CC heavy teams. Then for the item pool, you could first get a Maw. This is a really nice way to increase your damage and get 10% CDR, but it also has a really nice defensive shield at the same time. It's a really solid item to pick up against AP assassins to help survive their burst combos. Then another really solid defensive option that also has a great offensive utility would be the Guardian Angel. This will allow you to come back to life in the later stages of the game and still gives you some solid attack damage at the same time. You could then always go for the Duskblade. This is a really solid offensive option that will allow you to delete your targets with all the damage it provides, and if you are snowballing, it's definitely a viable option. Of course, just like the Duskblade, you could always go for a Yumu's as well. This is a really solid lethality item at the same time, and you can even activate it for some extra movement speed. Another really solid option on Lee Sin would be the Steraks Gauge. This yet again gives you some nice attack damage, but also has defensive utility. If you take a big chunk of damage, it will give you a shield, making you a little bit tankier, but make sure you don't pick it up with a Maw because the two items do not stack. Then if you need some magic resist, you could always go for a Spirit Visage. This item will also increase the healing you get from your W ability, so it's great on Lee Sin. Then finally, if you needed some extra armor, you could go for something like a Randuin's or a Thornmail. The Randuin's is really solid against high crit champions like a Yasuo, and Thornmail is great against high AD teams if you want to reflect some of the damage back and apply grievous wounds. For my example full build, however, I take that core build, then get Merc Treads and a Spirit Visage and a Guardian Angel. You'll be a pretty damn tanky champion and have a lot of damage at the same time. You'll be a true bruiser. And that covers everything I've got for Lee Sin in Season 8. If you guys enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, and visit my video description below. I have a link to all my social medias, and I do also have a Discord server, so that's one you should definitely check out. But other than that, thank you guys a ton for watching. I really do appreciate it, so take it easy, have a good day, and peace.